Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast, sponsored by the IBCA. We are a global podcast that shares the passion for the coaching profession. You will hear the stories of coaches from all around the world. We are covering the profession in game, outside of the game, and anything in between. As always, thank you for listening. We look forward to sharing the coaches' stories with you. All right, we are back with another episode of the After the Timeout podcast, and we are very fortunate to be joined by Jordan Olufson, Webster University women's basketball coach. Good morning, Coach. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, man. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've actually been able to listen to a lot of your podcasts, so it's an honor. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. So we like to start every episode off with what we call the opening tip. We feel it's always great for our listeners from around the country to just learn about different programs. If you could just kind of give our listeners just a little bit of an insight about Webster University women's basketball and just a little bit of your specific unique journey.
Yeah, Webster University. We're in St. Louis, Missouri, about 10 minutes downtown off I-44, and obviously we're a Division III school where we've got over 100 majors. It's something where the school's really grown from a campus standpoint. Um, it's unique because it's super diverse in many different areas. Obviously, I've been here 16 years, and the school does a pretty good job of supporting athletics and in the women's basketball program, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to have some success here. And so fortunate for that, been able to get great kids. Um, you know, I played in college. I did a year at Missouri Valley, and then went up to Mount St. Clair. That actually turned into the Franciscan University, which the next year turned into Ashford University, an NAI school north of the Quad Cities, and closed a few years ago, as a lot of schools are closing now. And um, got to help out a little bit there my last year after I got done playing, and then super fortunate enough to get with Dave Slifer at Central Missouri as his GA, and Coach Slifer's an icon. He's one of the best, not just in wins and losses, but as good people. And one thing that was great with me is Coach Slifer didn't treat me just like a GA. I was able to do scouting and recruiting, and so it was almost like an assistant coaching job. And I learned so much that year, and so truly grateful for him. My wife and I got married that year. As soon as the season got over, we got married. Shortly after that, we found out we were having our first daughter. So life changed. Ended up getting an opportunity to move to St. Louis, go to Webster University as the assistant coach. My wife got a job at the same time, and we've been here ever since. So if I forget how long I've been here, I know my daughter's 16. If I forget how old she is, I know I've been at Webster 16 years. So it's been a good journey. So
That's awesome. You kind of led right into the next question, kind of that path, right? A lot of guys, if you look at college coaches, right? Like they have to GA and then maybe they're a Dobo and then they kind of work their way up. Not that you didn't work your way up, but it was a little bit quicker than kind of most, right? So kind of what did you learn by you said you're lucky enough to be treated like an assistant as a graduate assistant, so I'm sure that helped a lot, right?
yeah.
But kind of what was that learning curve like in those jumps, and then kind of how's that first year? What lessons did you learn there?
Yeah, I get there, and it's like you got to do all the GA stuff. You got to get there early, set everything up. You got to do the admin stuff. Then it was like I remember my first day or second day, it was like, hey, you're running shooting workouts today, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? And so that's what Coach Cypher was so great about, was we could kind of do whatever we wanted to in the scope of what he was trying to do. So it actually forced me to be creative. It forced me to be like, hey, you got to figure this out. So I actually appreciate that. I remember my first scout, we're playing Washburn at that time was legit. And they're still very good. And I'm doing the scout, and I'm ready for it. Like we got through it. This is what they're doing. This is what they're doing based on out of bounds sideline. And one of the seniors goes, well, what happens if it doesn't work? What do they do? And I look right at Coach Leifer, and he's like, don't look at me. This is your scout. And so I think that was part of it, that, you think you're ready and you think, and then you get in a moment, you're like, man, I'm a detailed person. I wasn't detailed enough. So I think it was little things like that kind of humbled yourself to say, man, like the world of basketball is so big and you know that little about it, or you're ready for that little. So, I think in those moments, that was the fun part about that first year at Central. And, I remember there was a game where, our other assistant was out recruiting, and, as a GA, you're not talking before the game. And so he's doing his pregame and he points to me, and I'm like, I think I say, I don't know, a curse word, this or that. Why can't we just do this? Right. And he's like, dude, you got to chill out. It's funny, but, that was the learning part of it, is making sure you're ready and making sure you're, aware of a pregame or a scout or whatnot. So, man, that year was one of the best years I could say in my coach, and I appreciated it too.
So, Todd and I like to kind of do our homework on guests, and something, and we were looking over your notes you sent us, was you're big with fundraising in your athletic department. And I don't think this is, and Todd can jump in if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've really talked about fundraising specifically with any coach in the 110 episodes we've done. So, if you were a high school coach, if you were a college coach, and you're kind of going about designing maybe a fundraising plan or a way to create some revenue for your program, maybe what are some ideas, or what are some things you recommend to coaches out there in connection with fundraising?
Yeah, I hate asking for money. Like I want to cold call people. I think our approach with fundraising was, if we're gonna have to raise money, I want to make it fun. I want to make it where I feel like there needs to be a value of your time, your donation. And then why are you raising money? Are you raising money just to raise money, or are you raising money for a certain thing? And that was kind of our goal. Was we are raising money for team trips. We've been to LA 6 times. We've been to Florida. So we want the purpose to be known, which I think it makes it easier to ask someone to donate. And we've done trivia nights for 4 years, and we make it an event. Like, people talk about, like, hey, when's the next one? When are you doing this? And so from the venue, we were getting really good donations for our silent auction. So I think that those are things that matter, is that, yeah, we're raising money, but then when you left that night, you're like, man, I had a heck of a time. We would do, shoot-a-thons and crowdfunding and different things. I just feel like, we're in the age where everybody's asking for money. I just felt like our approach that we were trying to do was make it fun, make it enjoyable, make it part of the process. Even our trivia night, like, we have our kids run our trivia nights. Like, they're the MC, they're talking. I want to show you why you're donating, where the money's going to, and we want our players to be part of it. So, I don't know if we try to connect better or make it more social, but obviously every school needs to fundraise to a certain point. We just kind of found an avenue that we really enjoyed to do. And COVID hurt our trivia night stuff, because nobody could do anything for 2 years, and we're still trying to scramble back from that. But everybody's got to do it. I just felt like we needed to have a fun way to do it outside of camps and different things.
So, along with your coaching duties, you also teach courses there.
Yeah.
And then some coaches do, right? It used to be back in the day that everybody, right? You were a head coach, you taught a course. Sometimes now
Yeah.
you don't. But Do you think that gives you any advantage to both teach and coach on your campus as far as maybe keeping track of kids or getting to know kids or just being involved in the overall community at the school? And then kind of how do you balance that, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously the more important thing is the academic side, right?
Yeah.
Especially at a D3. So um what's kind of the balance there?
Yeah, I think I teach a couple health and sciences classes. I'm not teaching kinesiology, but I do think that being able to like connect with non-student athletes or different athletes in different sports definitely helps. Um, I'm a pretty social person. I like to talk. I like to interact. I like to communicate. Obviously, the more we get people that we can connect with, hey, come watch our team play. But uh, you know, you'll laugh. So we have spring break this week, and I'll start dodgeball. That's one of the classes I teach. It'll be the biggest class that of
It's
all our
amazing.
HLSC classes is
Amazing.
dodgeball. It'll be packed. And the greatest thing is like these kids come out, they're competitive. They'll leave sweating, and I'm like, man, we just played dodgeball for 45 minutes. But they love it, and then we do some strength conditioning stuff and different things. But I enjoy getting to know people outside of athletics too.
Listen, I should have got I should have gone. I would have played for you. Hey, I get to go play dodgeball. I'll get a credit for playing dodgeball. Man,
That's right. That's right.
it's
So
cardiovascular training, right?
that's right. That's
Right.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I teach PE, so I know how it goes. We can make it into
That-
a learning standard, right?
You'll laugh. I used to teach outdoor rec,
Cool. That's cool.
and you know what? When I first got, it, I was like, okay, we'll just play, kickball. And they're like, Coach, can we play? One day we're playing, one week. So it got to a point where one week we're playing softball, one week we're playing tennis, flag football. Um, it if pickleball would have got bigger
Yeah.
before I moved classes, I would have played pickleball. But we ended up playing speedball, which
Okay.
we had to learn. I mean, we played in middle school, so we brought it back. They loved it.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
awesome.
enjoyable. So
That's like I
Oh,
love it.
I think we just had a couple of kids transfer to Webster after they listened to the answer.
that's that's right.
Um, So, another thing we wanted to hit on in the first half of the show with you was just picking your style. And you and I were kind of chatting off the air just about your fast tempo and we're
Yeah.
gonna dig into it a little bit in this answer, but just I'm gonna kind of break this one into parts. When you first took over, did you know you wanted to play fast? Did you know you wanted that to be your identity?
Yeah, I think as a player, I was super offensively minded. So if you ask my high school coach, he's like, "Man, that dude never played defense." I mean, I tried, but I felt like um, we wanted to score a lot, and you'll laugh because like our first game here, I think we lost like 97-92. And when I first took over, um, we had people that played basketball. We didn't have basketball players. And so I'm having a heart attack that we gave up 90 plus points. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, you guys scored, 90 some 89 points, whatever it was. And it was one of those things where um watching different teams play as I grew up or watching coaches, when I got into college, defense was like the thing that was just pressed on people. And so it was kind of like, man, we got to defend. Especially then we weren't very good. We can't give up 90. So I think obviously we want to play fast. You got to have the personnel to play fast. Um, I think it's slowly just turned into kind of what I watched being with Coach Lifer, watching different coaches playing with pace, and being super aggressive with that. So probably as it as we've gotten more into our Webster stuff, um, our focus has been a little bit more on that, obviously because we've got the players that do it a little bit more now. But I every kid wants to play fast. Every kid thinks they can play fast. Doesn't mean they can. And so I think that's kind of where our mindset started was we're going to play fast. We're going to defend.
So the second half of this question is, and this is obvious. Every coach we talk to, they say, you build your system around your personnel, you build it around your players' strengths. But a caveat to that, and something I've been thinking about is, do you also feel as a coach, you also somewhat build it to your personal identity? You build it to kind of what you believe in, you build it a little bit to your personality? Because I'm starting to learn as we talk to all these coaches is sometimes the system is also based on the coach's personality, because if it's not, then it's not very genuine to who the coach is either.
Yeah. I think maybe part of that is with the college game is you're able to recruit the players that you want to the system that you want. We go and watch kids. We're like, man, she's a perfect fit for what we're trying to do. Um, you know, I think 2012, 2013, we had a really good 5 players. And then they come back now and they're like, Coach, why couldn't we do that when we played? And I was like, well, we didn't have the depth. We didn't have the personnel to do it. So I think it does benefit like the coaching style. Um, I'm a high energy, passionate, animated, and I want our players to play that same way. I want our players to show their personality when they're playing. Like if you get a big steal or a big turnover, like we want you to celebrate it. We don't want you to be excessive about it, but we want you to feel it. Because I just feel like when you're not playing with handcuffs and you get to play free, um, you get to be your best player. Your best comes out of you. So, I think that's a big part of it is recruiting to our style. Now, obviously, I was kind of say this: we get 2 6'6" kids and they can't run the floor. Well, we're going to slow the ball down and figure out how to get the ball inside. So, I think we will adapt what we're doing to our personnel. I think our concepts, our core values of pushing tempo and defending and pressing will always be there, but we'll adjust to what we have and what our strengths are too.
Coach went to 6'6", so we'd be happy if we could find somebody 6 foot. Let's be honest. Go on.
I figured if we speak it into existence,
There
maybe
we go.
somebody's like, "Hey, man, I need to go
Somebody's
to
just
West."
gonna show up. Hey, all right.
That's right.
Okay, couple of follow-ups off of that. Like everybody says they want to play fast. It's different to actually do it, right?
Yeah.
So when you're, and you got new players coming in, right? And I personally think like, right, players think they're playing fast,
Right.
right? But then you kind of look at it like, oh, okay, you look at film, whatever, the conditioning, whatever it may be, and they're not actually playing fast. So how do you kind of build that up, right, to get to where you want, whether it's drills, whether it's, your conditioning in the off season, whether it's, you know, what you're doing on a daily basis, how do you get to that point where you're happy with how fast you're playing, or, what are you looking at numbers wise, things like that?
Yeah, I think every player we recruit says, "Coach, I want to play fast." And when we start talking about it, or they get here the first week, "Coach, why are we running so much?" Well, hold on. You say you want to play fast. Like if we play fast, we got to be in shape for it, right? I'm not a big believer in just running to run. Like, we have, we'll do stuff when we run to run, but like we do 40 minutes of nonstop transition drills. I want our players to be able to sprint the floor, make a pass, talk, fill your lanes, and do everything at the same time. Um, and you got to be able to see the progression from day 1 to day 15. Is it getting better? Is it not? Um, are your players able? Because you find out real quick who can and who cannot. Even though everybody says they want to, or they what they think is fast is not what we think is fast. We want that ball up in less than I say this and you'll laugh, less than one dribble. If we can get this basketball and a lot of our transition drills, we don't want the ball to touch the floor. Like we gotta be able to pass. So I think it depends on we have different benchmarks of what we're looking for in our transition stuff, who can do it, who can execute. But I think it comes with our recruiting and what we talk about it from the first time we meet with you to, hey, I'm getting ready to make a decision to when you get here, this is what it's going to look like day to day. And you got to be able to produce and excel in this system at this level.
So you also mentioned playing free, right? And I,
Yeah.
I think that's different for a lot of players coming from different programs, right?
Yeah.
You watch a lot of programs, they're very structured, they have this and that. So playing free and playing fast, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to have some turnovers, right? So how do you help your players kind of know what the good mistakes are, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna pitch ahead, throw it to the rim runner or whatever you have, or
Yeah.
somebody taking off down the court. Every once in a while, you're gonna throw it over them or whatever because you're trying to be aggressive and push ahead. But then there's other mistakes that maybe right you're trying to eliminate. So how do you get your players kind of in that mindset of knowing that good decision making, I guess, and what's a good turnover, I guess, and what's a bad
Yeah.
turnover?
I feel like something that we do is probably way different than a lot of people is like we're going to play fast. We're going to have more turnovers. We're going to have more possessions. It's some people are like, oh my gosh, you guys had 15 turnovers, and I'm like, we just had 185 possessions in this game. Like we're worried about those 15. Now, obviously, we want to clean it up, and obviously, we want to have less. So in practice, we stat every single thing from missed layups to turnovers to deflections to assists to shooting, all of it. So um, I remember our first day we had a guard that had like 9 turnovers, and we talked about it. But by the time we got to January, like she had like 12 days in a row with 0. So once she got accustomed to the pace, how to pass, how to lead someone, I think that's part of it. Like players are gonna make mistakes. Um, how you react is a big thing for us. Um, I got some players that make a mistake, and I can already tell they know what they did wrong. I don't need to take a hammer and just hammer that kid right there. Now, hey, you keep doing it wrong and you're not making a change or you're not understanding it, then we have a conversation about it. But we're big with film. Like, let's watch film. We film every practice. Um, we want you to see the good, bad, and different. So I think you play free. Um, with what your game allows. Not every player can play free. I mean, some players are system kids, and so um, I, I think if you find your balance when you know your kids and how they play and their personalities, you coach them differently. We coach every single kid differently based off how they do it. So I think communication, trust, and just watching them develop each day and seeing their progression is kind of how we do things. It's not a flashy answer, but it works for us.
Last one before we get to halftime adjustments here. So you were mentioning, right, the old adage of defense wins championships, right? So that's basically what you're
Yeah.
saying. And John and I have
Yeah.
talked about this a lot watching, I'm sure you watch some of the Illinois high school games, right? Because you're getting some kids from Illinois and like we have scores in the like 40 to 42, right? Some of the
Yeah.
college games you get into the playoffs 40 to 42. And I'm a firm believer of like you playing fast, you have to score to win championships,
Yeah.
right? When it comes down to it, second half of the season, playoffs, everybody knows your stuff, so you have to be able to score, right? So how kind of are you developing that offense, right? To score, right? When it comes down to it, but also having that defensive mindset of we gotta that balance to help you play how you want to play.
Yeah, I think especially down the stretch when you start playing in the state games or conference tournament, nerves is a big thing that nobody really talks about. Where we've never played in a championship game and won 120 to 95. It's always been a 60 to 50, 72, 68. So the nerves are a big part of it too, right? I just feel like the defensive side is such a big thing where if you can disrupt or and when a game's tight and you can get a steal and all of a sudden you got 6 points from a transition layup, you take pressure off. And anything you can do to lessen stress or anxiety for players is good. So I do think that's where it is from the defensive side, but you got to score. And we run a lot of different things. We run a lot of continuity, we run a lot of dribble drive, we run a high low stuff. I feel like every game is different. Everybody will attack someone differently, and so once you kind of figure out, like, man, they're struggling in this action, Man, we played our championship game. The second quarter, we ran the same play the whole time. Third quarter, we ran the same play the whole time. We're not going to change it. That's something we didn't run a lot over the whole season, but it worked for us in that game of how they were guarding and what do they want to take away from. So, I just feel like for us, it's game by game, what we're trying to execute and what we're trying to look into. And yeah, man, I love to score 100 every game, but it's just not reality.
Well, I kind of love what you said there, like that margin of error, right? You score, if you can score in different ways, that gives you don't
Yeah.
have to be as perfect defensively. You don't have to be as perfect offensively. So your last part of that question led me into our what we call halftime adjustments. And thinking about this a lot lately, like how you ran the same play and this and that, but how you like kind of tier your stuff, right? Obviously, at the beginning of the year, you have okay, we want to have this base stuff in. But
Yep.
as you go, and I haven't quite looked at your conference schedule, but if you play everybody twice or you see
Yep.
people adjust, right? They're gonna
Yep.
take this away, they're gonna take that away. So how do you go about throughout the season, kind of adding a wrinkle or adding an adjustment, and like when do you know, kind of okay, it's time to put this in? Is it okay? We have this our base stuff down really good. Now we can add, or is it game by game? How do you go about tiering what you're doing and adding those wrinkles to kind of adjust to what the other teams are doing?
Yeah, I think, and we play everybody twice in our league. So, we have a big catalog. We have a big playbook of quick hitters, and we will purposely not run stuff for 3 or 4 games in a row because most people are going to look at your last 3 or 4 games. So we will purposely not run stuff or save it. We had some stuff we put in October and September, and we didn't run it till February for that same reason. So, I kind of laugh because we press and we'll get up and they'll come out and they'll play man. And then all of a sudden they go zone. I go, man, it wasn't the defense that changed it. It was your press offense or whatever. So everybody, like for us, we've got to the point that we have to adjust for every single team based on what they're trying to do. So I think that, I don't know. It's one of those things where we'll adjust with our personnel based off what they're trying to, or our size of it. There's our championship game. It was all perimeter for us that won that game. The night before it was all our post players, and I think that's where we're able to be versatile with our players, and it's okay. I tell our players this: it's okay if your night is Thursday and you may not have that night on Saturday. And I think that's something that's kind of what our program's about, is being okay with someone else having success.
So, the second half of the episode, we like to focus on a specific topic with our guests. And for you, it's player development in the off season. For the most part, Illinois just wrapped up last night. For the most part, most states are wrapping up their high school season. The Division III college Final Fours are this coming weekend, I believe. So pretty much in the next couple weeks, everyone, college and high school, will be in the off season. So kind of let's start with the starting point for off season development. What kind of goes into your planning, your staff's planning with your student athletes? Are you looking at film to figure out? Do you just kind of know? Are you looking at stats, other analytics? What's like that starting point for those conversations with the player for their development?
Yeah. So we just got done. So our kids will get 2 weeks off, and then we'll do exit interviews with them all. So right now, our whole staff individually will make assessments of what they feel is right for each player, and then we will come together and talk about, because I might see something way different than someone else, and that's the greatness of like our coaching staff is everybody is different. Everybody sees the game differently. So we'll come together and come up with, okay, these are the things that we like. Maybe all of us have the same stuff. So we'll do that. We'll meet, and then we'll meet with the players and talk with them because we want them to have say in their off season. Like, we're going to ask, how did the season go for you? What was good? What was bad? What do you want to get better at? Because I believe in part of your development isn't just coaches saying, you need to do this, this, and this. They're going to be like, okay, yeah, coach told me to do this. I want our players to have say in this because I feel that the more you can involve your players in their development, because there might be an area where they want to get developed, then it they'll buy in more. They'll be more passionate about their off-season work than us just telling them to do this and this. So we want this to be kind of a conversation that we have with them, not at them. So we'll talk about it. We'll use analytics to a point. I'm a feel gut coach too. So sometimes like, oh, this kid can't make shots. Well, if I get in a shooting workout, I see the kid make shots. You know, I take that more than sometimes what the numbers do, and sometimes we go by the numbers. So it's a balance of both of our eyes and in the analytics with our development stuff.
So now let's kind of talk about the structure, right? The D3 is kind of goofy, right? Everybody sees the D1 kids, they get the summer hours, they get this, they get that.
Yep.
At the D3 level, we don't get much, right? Once I know they added those 8 days, right? For people that know, they added some 8 days and you could use them how you wanted.
Yep.
We happen to use ours early in the season, right? I don't know, how you use yours, but
Yep.
but we don't have much contact. We can't get into the gym and say, hey, we're gonna, I guess technically you still can because the season's going on right now, but like you said,
Right.
you're giving them time off. But once that's drop dead date's over, it's on their own besides strength and conditioning and stuff like that. So
Yep.
how do you kind of structure it, right? Like what are you looking to accomplish with your kids and get done? Whether it's individual skills more, um, concepts, could be open gyms, could be them playing, whatever it may be. Conditioning, what does your structure look like, and what are you trying to really accomplish in the off season with your players, knowing that you don't have that on court time with them as much as some other, the other levels do.
Yeah. That's the tough part, right? So I feel like once season's done, it's like, all right, we'll see you in 6 months, which is frustrating. It's obviously we've got some days and stuff, but 3 or 4 days out of 6 months,
Right.
it doesn't do a ton. We're pretty fortunate. We had a full-time strength conditioning coach that's really, really good. So our kids will lift 4 days a week with him. Our kids will run open gyms. In St. Louis, we have another school here that runs a college summer league. So they play twice a week, every Sunday night. So, so they get the opportunity to get some runs in and go live and whatnot. But we will give them their optional shooting workouts and things that we want and kind of like this is your plan. Now, what you do with it is on you because we're not like we can, hey, send us videos or send me clips or send me a benchmark of what you're doing. I mean, it's really on them. I I feel one part of our structure is when we give them stuff, it's progression, and we will see it. Like, so the crazy thing is, I can't watch our kids have open gym, right? NCAA doesn't let us have it, but the NCAA will let me go watch a summer league game. So we can see progression, what's happening in 2 months or in 3 months, and now I can't get on a Zoom and say, hey man, I noticed you're not working on your left hand. But it's more of an internal thing that, hey, they're progressing, they're not. I feel like players that really care about it are going to get after it, are going to buy into what it is, and I think that's the culture that you have from a player to coach relationship. So it's a frustrating off season because we're so hands off. Um, our kids will. There's a Missouri has a Show Me State Games, which is like the Olympics, and so they have a 19 and over league. Well, our kids will play in it, but those are really the opportunities they have. Besides, a lot of our kids will hang out all summer and have open gyms. But once we kind of lay it out for them what they need to do, and here's your optional stuff to do, it's really on them. So it's kind of a frustrating thing, which I think hurts the student experience. We recruit a kid just like a Division I does, a Division II does. Then the frustration is, well, why can't we work with our kids to help them stay connected to campus or retain them or whatnot? But that's a different topic.
Yeah, most definitely. I tell John this all the time, like coming from high school to going to college, it's like, okay, high school you got done and okay, I got June, right? I can get back in the gym, kind of work on some stuff. Whereas D3, you're like, okay, I'll see you in October,
Right.
I'll say hi to you when you walk in for open gym when I open the door. But other than that, like I'll see you in October. It's kind of crazy to me, but
well, even in Missouri and Illinois, I mean, like high school coaches get to do more with their high school players. And
Yeah.
and these are college athletes. Like, we get to do less. I don't know. It's a frustrating
Yeah.
model, but I mean, it is what it is.
So, kind of in that light, Todd and I are often very much about making things simple. And, if our listeners are listening, and, obviously I actually just stole something from you, which was take the individual ideas from all my staff and put it together. So I'm stealing that. But if you could do nothing else for development with your kids, but you could develop three specific skills from them, what three skills would you want all of your kids to be able to have going into the next season?
Um, I think the number one thing that it's not so much of a skill in terms of ball handling and whatnot is our IQ with pressure. I think this is an area where um, everybody has a trainer, everybody works with people. I grew up and we played at the park. I play. If you talk to my high school, I played 6-7 hours a day. I sat in my driveway and worked through all of my moves, visualizing a game winning shot, or there was a guy that I was 16. I go to the Y 3 times a week. There was a guy, probably 45, 50. We play 101 to 100, and he would just beat the crap out of me. But I learned how to maneuver around. So I think one thing that I want our players to do is play more one-on-one, play more 2-on-2, handle pressure. How do you make this move? How do you make that move? Another skill is ball handling with pace is another thing that we really want to focus on. And then pressure shooting. It's easy to make a shot on a gun and you get 1,000 reps, but can you do it with time? Can you make so many shots on the shooting machine on the clock of 2 or 3 seconds? Can you do it with fatigue? Can you do it? We do a lot of pressure shooting. Can you do that consistently, or are you only doing it when you get with us? So um, that's probably the three areas that we would want our players to strive to get better at. Because I think that will all help with what we're trying to do in their development too.
So no, you mentioned it, right? It's kind of on their own, right? Your players are
Yeah,
on their own. They
yeah,
gotta get after it, and if they want to, they want to. They don't.
right.
But how do you assess that? Then you talked about a little bit, like watching them play summer league and things like that. But
Yeah,
when you come back, right? Right, you can tell, right?
no doubt.
Who's been doing what?
Yep,
Oh, coach, I've been hitting a lot of jumpers this summer, and then they come back and they're 0 for the century
yeah.
in a game,
You're
right?
the
So
same.
either you've been hitting jumpers at your pace, right? Or you haven't been doing it at game pace, whatever it may be. But kind of where are your goals for them to be individually and as a team when you come back based on your offseason plan?
Yeah.
And then how do you build that after that assessment into the preseason and the early season?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes to do with your upperclassmen. You lean on them. You lean on them to make sure everybody else is getting into the gym and working. Um, I always kind of say, like, you want to be the teammate that people want to work out with you because you're going to push you. You don't want to be the teammate. They're like, oh man, I want to go with so and so because man, they won't go so hard or whatnot. So I think one thing with D3 that good, bad, and different is the recruiting piece motivates people one or two ways. They're like, oh man, I don't want my spot to be taken, or all right, well, it is what it is. So I think that's part of their motivation in the offseason. Um, we track every single thing in our shooting workouts. So when a kid comes back, you should be where you finished off at, or you're not. And if you're not, it's going to tell us, like, hey, man, why are you not hitting the numbers? It took us 6 months to get you to this, but now all of a sudden you're not even hitting that number. What'd you do all summer? I think most kids will be honest. Some kids will say, "Oh, coach, I was in the gym every day, and but what were you doing? If you're in the gym for 3 hours and on Instagram for 2 hours and 47 minutes, you really weren't in the gym, right?" So I think that's part of this is you're going to see their what they did right away in how we track things or what we do or in conditioning or whatever it is. You'll see what they've done. I always kind of say there comes a time where winter will ask what you did all summer. It's going to show. And so I just feel like you got to be motivated or not. If you're not, you're gonna show right off the bat what you have not done.
So it's funny you use that quote because my first off season after my first season as a head coach, that I actually made t-shirts and put that quote on the back and handed out all the t-shirts. And I was like, all right, well, follow the t-shirt. I'm going to figure out in late October what you did all off season.
Yep. My favorite quote. It's my favorite quote.
I agree. So as we move into our last two segments, the first one we call 30-second timeout. It's your opportunity to talk about whatever you want, something that's important to you, your program, something you want our listeners to know. You could turn the table and ask Todd and I a question. And as we joke with all of our guests, we promise there is no referee in your timeout saying, wrap it up, wrap it up.
Yeah. I think that, Webster is a great thing. I really just appreciate any notice that we can get to our players. I think our players have been able to put our program on a new level. And I also feel pretty blessed. I've got a great family. I've got my wife whose dad was a high school coach. I said, you married into it. Now you know what you got to deal with. So the late nights or not being home or being a single mom for 6 months, so just super appreciative of what she's done. And we've got a 16-year-old daughter who's playing basketball here at Incarnate. And I'm fortunate that the other thing I get to do is coach club. I coach in the Feast of Collier Elite. So, she's probably too good for me. But I do get the spring and summer to be able to coach her. So really fortunate with that. But I would ask just to kind of go back, like, how do you guys break down your development for your players from the off season? Do you guys have, things that you have benchmarks or, what does that look like for you guys?
Go ahead, Joe.
So mine's a little bit different than both of you as a high school head coach, but also the same. Something I'm going to discuss, Coach, is I think in the last 2 or 3 years, I've become much more focused on shooting and shot making. I felt like my first few years as a head coach, yes, we were successful, wins and loss wise, but I felt like it was largely as we went through the analytics, and I'm lucky I've had some assistants with me for a long time, and the stats and kind of just the eye view of it is, we were largely doing it on creating turnovers, playing hard defense, pressing, and attacking the basket. And, obviously as people started to counter us over the years, I realized like, hey, they're countering us. And I said this to my staff, they're countering us, guys, by trying to slow us down, pack it in, and make us shoot. And I'm like, we are just not shot makers. So I've implemented, and my kids noticed. We had our exit meetings a couple weeks ago. And actually my kids actually said to me, Coach, we actually want even more shooting. So that's definitely something I've focused on, which was why I was really interested to hear your 3 things. And I completely agree with something you said about the pressure shooting is, sure, my kids will do our green light shooting drills, and, they'll make in 3 minutes, 30, 35, but then we get in a game and you shoot 2 for 7. And I'm like, okay, well, something's not matching up here. So, and then the other thing we definitely do is I definitely take my kids' feedback in the exit meetings. I'll actually ask the question of, hey, what do you want to get better in the off season? And then another question I ask is, how are you going to make the program better this off season? That's something I always feel is important, whether it's through your leadership, through you said a quote that I really liked was, be the teammate that you want to have people work out with you because you're going to push them, not the teammate that says, hey, I'm going to go 50%, you go 50%, and we're both going to look like we're working really hard. So
I think over the years, I've become a little bit less in some of the other skills and a little bit more in shot making, just because of a lot of things we've talked about.
Yeah, I've been leaning more towards, and I coach my daughter, and she's in fourth grade, but like you said, and I've said this for a while, it's just you have to play and not 5-on-5, right? Because 5-on-5 you get lost, right? You can stand out there, you can get 2, 3 shots. You have to play 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, 3-on-3s, and just learn how to kind of play, because now you can use those individual skills, right? There's more space, there's more opportunity, there's more room to make those mistakes and learn from it. So that's kind of where I've been trying to trend to, is play more small-sided games, 2-on-2s, 1-on-1s. Like you said, Coach, I went to the Y every day after school.
Yep.
And I played against older kids, and I
Yep.
played 1-on-1s and 2-on-2s, and that's just kind of how I got better. I was more of a baseball guy when I was a kid, and I got better at basketball because I went and I had to. Otherwise, right, you sit on the side and you don't play, right? So I think that's kind of a lost skill. And I think, going back to what I said earlier of scoring, that's going to help you with those individual skills scoring. I truly believe, yes, we need to play good defense, but when it comes down to it, you're going to need buckets. You're going to need to figure out a way to score outside of the context of a set or your offense, because people are going to just take that away, especially at high level high school. Once you get to the playoffs, high level D3, if you want to get in a conference tournament, you've seen teams now third time, right? They know everything you're going to do. Like, everybody's calling it out, right? This is this and this. So that's kind of where I've been leaning for. And obviously shooting, getting shots up, getting reps. I've just leaned towards the more of the skills and scoring in the off season, just because I think that when it comes down to it, that's going to help you win games. I feel like you can teach the defensive stuff, right? Like, that's almost more of a thing where, right, sometimes that has to be in a team concept, right? Because even if you play 3-on-3, something's going to be open no matter where you are. So it's hard to do that in the off season. So that's where I've been trying to gravitate to and kind of figure out the best way to do it, and get players to play and just develop those skills that way.
Well, and I think, not to add one more thing, but I think something else that I've kind of grown and learned is them learning how to create their own shots. Like, I was watching some of the boys finals last night, and it's the late third, early fourth quarter. It's a state championship game, and okay, great. So and so ran a quick hitter, but kind of as Todd said, and you alluded to, after you play somebody multiple times or watch, it's a state finals. I'm sure they all watched 8, 9, 10 films of each other. It's okay, great. I know this guy goes right, pulls up, likes the short corner baseline jumper, so I'm going to force him the other way. Well, then it's that kid's counter to go to the left, have a 2-foot jump stop, pull up in the lane, and take a one-handed floater and make it under that situation. So I think it's those things too. It's not just shooting in isolation, but shot creation when somebody takes away your number one move. Because as you said, sure, in December, that move's going to work because it's a Tuesday night. You've watched maybe a half of somebody because you just had a game 2 days ago. Everybody's tired. And those moves just work. But as you get later, they don't necessarily work anymore because of the preparation.
Yep.
All right,
One thing
go ahead.
we ask our kids in their exit stuff after we talk to them is, what's your plan and how are you going to do it? And they have to, before they leave, they actually have to tell us what their plan is when they go home. Coach, I'm going to work with the trainer. Who are you working with? Because I don't let them just do the generic stuff. Like, give me the details, because I feel like if you have a plan, you'll stick to it. If it's just vague, you can change it. Now, they can still choose not to do it, but that's part of it, is put your plan out, let us know what it is, and go from there, or be vague. And then you kind of tell right there what their mindset really is. Oh, I'm gonna try to find a trainer. I'm gonna try to find a gym. Maybe I'll go to Planet Fitness. Okay, you're telling me you really no idea what you're going to do. Then some will be like, Coach, I'm going to work with this person. I'm going to do this. Monday, I'm going to do this. Tuesday, I'm going to do this. And then I'm like, okay, at least they've already thought about it.
Yep.
Because those are the kids that care a little bit more too. So
For sure.
All right, let's move on to the last segment. Quick hitters, fun, rapid fire questions. Some random, some basketball. But first one, best Division III gym, not yours.
So I like history. I like smaller gyms. I think Anderson University is awesome. It reminds me of Hoosiers. They've got the hoop still into the cement with the metal rods. I think it's good. UC Santa Cruz is awesome from the design that they have. It's a smaller gym. So those are I got two. Those are probably my two favorite ones that we've been able to see you play in.
Well, now I got to look up Anderson. Okay. Underrated thing to do in St. Louis.
Lone Elk Park. It's a place where the military took over this, and literally there was one lone elk, and now they have you can drive through this. It's free. They got bison, deer. I think it's really cool. Not a lot of people know or talk about it, even here in St. Louis. I'm a big concert guy, so I think St. Louis has great music. So from St. Louis Old Rock House to the Factory to Del Mar Hall, I like going to concerts. So I'm a small, intimate concert guy.
Hey, at least he didn't say the Arch, John. Us Chicago guys get tired of hearing about the Arch. Hey, we're gonna go up in the elevator. All right.
Do we have that here?
Never heard of it, right?
Yeah, right. That's right.
Best Division III travel story.
Or
it could be the worst, right? You always have good ones.
Yeah, I don't know if this is so D3. This was early on. We had to go play at Rose Holman. The bus showed up late, and we were like, it's like 3 hours. There's a time change. So we're going. It was like St. Louis weather. It was 65 degrees the last 3 days. All of a sudden, it's wind chills at -10. He's running late. Coach, I'm sorry. We'll get the bus warmed up. So we're driving. We're an hour in Illinois. Obviously, you know how many mountains there are in Illinois. So the wind was just really getting blocked. And we're like, man, is the heat on? They're like, Coach, it's warming up. And we found out about an hour in that the bus didn't have heat. So we had to literally, our kids are like shivering in the back. And this is an up and back. So we had to stop at Walmart. We're buying blankets, heated blankets, trying to warm our kids up. So we've got two hours left. And the whole time I'm just like, man, how bad are we going to play today? Like, I can't imagine we're going to make a shot. Our hands are frozen. You know what? We came out. We were hot. I think we shot like 61% in the first half. I was like, man, I don't know. Maybe we got to get a bus with windows the rest of the year and whatnot. But that was probably the first story of things that could go wrong. And obviously this could be anybody, but that's one that our kids still talk. Coach, you remember when the bus's heat didn't work? I'm like, oh yeah.
We had the opposite one last year. We went to Butler to play an exhibition, and the heat, he couldn't turn it down. It was miserable. Like,
I'd rather have the cold.
Like, kids in the back with their like short sleeves, tank tops on, like, and it was like same thing, wind blowing, right? We're going to Butler, we're running late. Guys stopped like 3 times. Like, dude, we got to get to Butler. It's not like we can just call them.
Right.
You know, it was bad. Like, we were all within the first 20 minutes. We're all like, it was early in the season, so we're trying to do scout on our computers, and we're like, we got to close this because otherwise we're gonna get sick. Because it was that interesting.
Oh, man.
All right, so we tweaked some of these. So I'm a huge music guy. So now I'm just curious, what's best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert. I saw Maroon 5, Counting Crows, John Mayer. One of the best. Nobody knew who Maroon 5 was. I'm a big John Mayer fan. Love Counting Crows. That was when Adam wasn't in his right state of mind. He literally sat under the piano and sang. It was the best concert I've ever seen. Didn't move. He just sat under there and just sang. One of the best. So I would probably throw that up there. I like all kinds of music. So big Kenny Chesney fan. I've seen him 27 times. I think how he performs is really good. One of my I got top 3 would be, I went up to Detroit and saw Brian McKnight years ago. Literally him and Craig David. One of the best concerts, outside venue, one of the best things I've ever seen.
All right, another tweak here. You said you coached AAU. Everybody has a good AAU story, whether it's a player you played against, whether it's the AAU bingo scene, right, where you're seeing weird stuff on the court. What do you got for your good AAU story?
Man, now you put me on the spot to think about. The tough thing is literally I coach 2 teams, so I'm recruiting and literally will change my shirt to go coach a game, change it back to go recruit, to come back and change.
Right.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, we've had so much fun and success with it. I don't know if there's I got a lot of crazy parent story. I've been part of. We're playing a team and a fight breaks out with the fans. We're playing a game last year and it's competitive. We're up. And it is. It's 6:00 on a Saturday. The refs been there all day long. They're not trying to call no fouls. All of a sudden, there's kind of a scuffle, and parents just like everybody's just consumes to each other. And I'm like, man, we pull our kids off. Parents are getting into it. So that's probably the craziest thing I've ever seen because you don't see that really in high school and college. But we saw it there. They got removed from the tournament. But
what about the best player you ever ran up against? Show up and you're like, oh man, we're in trouble.
Man, now listen, I had the luxury to coach Natalie Potts, who is at Nebraska. Who ended up being probably she was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. So we've been able to coach really good players. Man, I've been fortunate to see a lot of really good talent. I mean, I feel like every time we play someone, like that kid's going to Michigan, that kid's going to LSU. I'm like, holy cow! Like, I don't know. We've seen a lot.
It's funny you brought up Nebraska. Todd and I were just talking about Nebraska women's basketball yesterday.
Yeah, their offense. They're cooking right now. They're cooking.
They're playing well. They're playing well.
All right, last one. And I always find this one interesting. As a coach, do you have any like pregame rituals or superstitions or don't do this or I gotta do this or I gotta wear this? Anything like that?
Big superstition guy. So I have to get gas at the same pump on game day and get the same soda and the same breakfast. I got to do how I sit. We help set the gym up. I got to set the chairs up in the same way. When I put my socks in, I got to go right to left. Everything is like, and then I get to the point of like, is that what I did the other day? Did I do that? Did I do this? Did I button that button the right way? So I'm probably over the top with that, but everything from what we have the night before to how I get gas, everything. And I wait to get gas on game day. Just I'll push it if I'm 9 miles away to make sure if I got gas the first time of the year on game day, we're getting gas every game day.
You got to start thinking about that before the season, right? Like you got to factor
that
in. Otherwise, one day you're gonna be like, "Hey guys, you got to come pick me up. I ran out of gas."
That's right.
Well, Coach, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. It was an awesome conversation. Love learning about your program, the things you do. I encourage all of our listeners to check you guys out on film. Find you guys on YouTube. I'm sure we can find you multiple places. I'm definitely gonna go back and hit up the Synergy free. Watch you guys play fast. Try to learn something from you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, appreciate you. This has been awesome. It's been great. I appreciate the time and being able to talk about our program. Thank you so much. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast in partnership with the IBCA. Please be sure to rate us on whatever platform you are listening and give us a 5-star rating. For more show content and updates, please follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout. As always, thank you for listening. Tune in next time for more content on the court, off the court, and anything in between.